Ghost Tales.
Hey girlies and ghoulies, and welcome to the Girly Ghost Tales podcast. We're your hosts for this evening. I'm Amber.
And I'm Leah, and this is a supernatural podcast about ghost stories, ghost hunting, conspiracies, witchcraft, haunted objects, places, even people, and everything in between, with a little bit of girl talk mixed in.
What more could you ask for? Tonight, we're sharing stories about cabins and winter woods that'll make you rethink your next getaway.
So sit back, grab some popcorn, get comfy, and
To the grave we go. All right. So this one is about Louis Belt Lodge. On a Christmas climbing trip in 1973, two young climbers experienced a frightening series of events in a remote mountain bothy. Phil MacNeil was 18 and a member of Glasgow's Langslide Climbing Club when he and his friend Jimmy Dunn set out from the city of the Lochaber Hills. They took the train to Balloch and they hitched a lift north to all these towns. Kinlochleven near Fort William, from where they set out on foot about 10 miles to Louis Belt Lodge, a former deer stalking lodge. Now in ruins, the building has been adapted for use as a bothy, an overnight shelter for hill walkers and climbers tackling the area's mountains. So it's just like a little shelter that, if you're on a long hike, you can just stay.
Yeah, I think they have those on. I didn't even know that they had things like that, but I think they have them on like most mountains, like little hut
Yeah,
things
that's
to
kind
like
of what I
stay
thought
at.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming deer stalker just means deer hunter.
Yeah, stalker.
Deer stalker.
Stalking the deer in the woods.
Yeah, sounds creepy. In 1973, it was rumored that a small group of isolationists, or hippies, had recently taken to living permanently off the grid at Louis Belt Lodge. Nevertheless, Phil and Jimmy still believed that the lodge's new residents would welcome any walkers or climbers who happened to be in the area, especially in such bitter conditions. The two had hoped to use Louis Belt as a base for their continuing climbing trip. Surprisingly, when they arrived at Louis Belt Lodge, the door was locked. They knocked but received no answer. Both men peered through the grimy windows into the shadowy interior of the old deer stalking lodge. There did not seem to be anyone inside the property, although they could clearly see what appeared to be recently used crockery piled in the sink. Thinking that the residents may have left to obtain provisions and would return later, the pair left their rucksacks in an outbuilding and decided to attempt a climb along the snow and ice on the surrounding hillsides before returning to the isolated lodge at 9 p.m. By this time, the intense winter darkness had descended, temperatures had plummeted, and the two climbers had no desire to spend the night outside in the snow with the ominous ice-capped mountains looming over them. It was pitch dark, Phil recalled. We shone our torches through the windows, and nothing seemed to have changed since earlier. Fortunately, they located an unsecured window with a black polythene bag tied to it and carefully pried it open. They climbed inside the gloomy building. It was cold, that was the first thing. Strangely, it was much colder on the inside than outside, said Phil. It felt odd. It just didn't feel right. We made our way around the house, and it became immediately obvious that the place looked as if the people had vacated it rapidly. There was a table set for Christmas dinner. There were Christmas crackers still to be pulled open on the table, but Christmas clearly hadn't happened. Phil and Jimmy nervously explored the climbing lodge by the light of their torches, moving from room to room, noting that each one appeared to have been recently occupied. There were furnishings, piles of old dusty books, and general debris, which might indicate recent habitation. Next, they climbed the creaking staircase. As they carefully made their way along the musty landing and entered the furthest bedroom, directly above the Bothy's living room, the ambiance seemed to be marked differently from the other rooms. This bedroom felt unwelcoming and icy cold. It contained nothing but a dismantled metal bed frame propped up against the wall and to the right, a large window with a pair of open olive green curtains. On the window ledge stood a curiously placed boulder, which Phil described as larger than my hand. Now, I feel like when I hear the word boulder, I think a giant.
Yeah.
But apparently to them, it's just a rock. The two climbers decided that the inhabitants must have left hurriedly on Christmas Day for some unknown reason and had not returned since. We went downstairs to the living room and got into our sleeping bags to bed down for the night, Phil remembered. It was about midnight. Jimmy played his recorder and sang a few songs, the sort of thing mountaineers do in the hills. Phil described exactly what happened next. It was extremely cold. It enveloped you. We blew our candles out. It was black in there. Like you really can't understand what black actually is. You can wave your fingers in front of your face and you will not see them. The other thing is the silence. When you're out in the middle of nowhere, the silence is palpable. Almost the minute we blew out our candle, there were noises upstairs. The first noises which we heard were footsteps upstairs in the room above. The second noise we heard was the dismantled metal frame being pulled away from the wall, and it sounded as though it was being put together. And then, a little while later, the third noise we heard was the boulder on the window ledge being rolled around the floor. The noises ceased for a short while, as Phil later explained. Suddenly, the place went absolutely dead silent, completely dead silent. Relieved, the two cold, terrified, and exhausted men somehow managed to drift into a fitful slumber. However, at 4 a.m., Phil was awoken again when suddenly everything changed. The noises weren't just in the room above, they were in our room. With a violent jolt, the entire living room erupted with the sounds of objects flying around all over the place. We can't see them, of course, because it was completely black, but including our razor sharp ice axe and ice hammers, everything was flying around the room in the total darkness. I was absolutely petrified, Phil recalled. I got on top of my sleeping bag and gripped it tightly in a sort of fetus position. Jimmy was 3 feet away from me, and he could hear my heart beat. I don't know what it would take to hear someone else's heartbeat, but that's a fact. He could hear my heart thumping. I lit a candle only for it to mysteriously launch itself across the room, as though somebody had kicked it away. Books were also sent flying off of the bookshelves, and we could hear the sound of footsteps coming from the corner of the bedroom upstairs.
Ugh.
A moment's silence followed before the unmistakable shuffle of footsteps resumed. This time they seemed closer still, as if this thing was coming directly down the staircase in casual footsteps from the upstairs to the bottom of the staircase, right on the other side of the closed living room door, the very room in which the two terrified men were sheltering. Somehow, Phil managed to fumble for his ice axe in the dark and went to the door. He threw it open, but the hallway outside was empty. He continued, I slammed the door shut and heard the footsteps go straight back up the staircase to the top and emerge above us, wandering across the bedroom floor above. Phil and Jimmy were both certain the cottage had been empty when they had fallen to sleep. They decided to make their escape via the open window through which they had entered earlier. As they fumbled into the darkness outside, they turned and shone their head torches towards the upstairs bedroom window. As the beam picked out the window frame, they could clearly see that the olive green curtains were now closed. The men firmly believed that no one could have been hiding in the lodge or had entered while they slept. I am absolutely certain of it, Phil confirmed in his later interviews. We got there and we went through the entire building and there was nobody there, and we would have seen their footprints in the snow. It was a frightening choice the two men made that night. Stay and continue to face the sheer terror of the dark, mysterious house, or leave in the middle of the night, not knowing what they might face outside.
I would not be going outside.
I imagine it's so cold in the middle of nowhere in the mountains.
Yeah, that's.
I
I
feel
feel
like
like
you're more
it
likely
sounds
to
like,
get eaten by a bear.
and like maybe they're trying to get them to go outside.
Yeah.
Like by scaring them.
Ooh. Phil was asked in a subsequent newspaper interview, any sensible person would want to get the hell out of there, but bear in mind it was 4 o'clock in the morning and in the middle of winter and extremely cold. The two men returned, frightened and breathless, to Kinlochleven and from there to the illuminated safety of Glasgow. Phil has never wavered or changed his version of events and remains utterly convinced by his experiences. Neither has he sought to gain from them. In fact, the opposite is true. For those who believe in the existence of the poltergeist phenomenon, there is a possible explanation for the manifestation that Phil experienced at Louisbelt Lodge. In 1890, a 40-year-old gamekeeper and deer stalker named John McAlpin lived at the lonely cottage with his wife. Sadly, he committed suicide on a particularly bleak April day. His death was subsequently reported to the Oban Times on April 26th, 1890. McAlpin Alpine went out for a walk in the morning in his usual health, but later in the day his wife found him hanging from a rope tied to a crossbeam. He had hung himself in the strangely unnerving bedroom above the room in which the two climbers had attempted to sleep. The lodge is no stranger to other dark tragedies and still exudes an overwhelming sense of isolation. Dr. Brander, whose medical practice covered this part of the Highlands at the beginning of the 20th century, called it the loneliest spot in the Highlands of Scotland. In February 1907, the bodies of 3 navvies were found by a shepherd in the thick snow on the nearby hillside. It was thought that the 3 men had been overcome by the bitterly icy snowstorm while making their way to the dam construction project at Kinlochleven, 10 miles away. Their efforts to reach the shelter of the lodge had failed, and they succumbed to the intense cold. In September 1920, the next gamekeeper to reside at Louisbelt Lodge also passed away inside the lonely cottage. The intense sadness and loneliness of the place finally grew too much for William Elliot, who died on the 5th anniversary of his son's death in the Great War. His son, Private Hugh Elliot, had joined the Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders, but sadly succumbed to his injuries in the trenches of in the trenches of France during September 1915. The tragic atmosphere of Louisbelt Lodge appears to have far-reaching tentacles. The rundown cottage was eventually abandoned. Nevertheless, even as recently as in 1994, a hill walker hiking past the ruins of the lodge suddenly crossed paths with another person who unexpectedly appeared out of nowhere of the misty gloom. Having not seen another soul for 10 hours, the walker was startled and expressed his surprise. The ghostly figure passed him without speaking or making even the slightest sound. When the walker turned around, the man was gone. 2 years earlier, in 1992, a group of 3 girls out hiking had taken shelter in the lodge during a storm, only to be frightened by a knocking sound on the door. Luckily, it was still daylight, and the trio decided to brave the weather and leave the cottage. As they passed down the track in the driving rain, the girls had a distinct impression of a shadowy figure close behind them. However, when they turned around, they were alone. They ran away in fright, never to return. Although little more than a shell remains today, the location still maintains a lonely, sad, and uneasy atmosphere. In summer 2023, a hill walker suffered from projectile vomiting after visiting the tumble-down lodge. Curiously, a rowan tree has now appeared next to the ruins. In Celtic culture, the rowan was traditionally planted to ward off evil spirits. Mysteriously, this tree has grown in a misshapen fashion, as if its natural inclination is to grow towards the ruins of the lodge has somehow been countered by an unseen force. And that's it. You can listen to Phil tell his story on a podcast. It's the BBC's podcast called Uncanny. It's season 1, episode 10.
I want to listen to that now.
It was fine.
Yeah, nothing like too exciting.
Yeah, I feel like you could probably hear better retellings
Yeah.
than from his own.
Yeah.
But I have a few pictures. This is Phil when he was around 18. Classic. What was this? What did I say? The 70s?
Yeah.
Classic.
Looks like how my dad used to look.
And then this was the lodge, like, in its prime, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And this is now what it looks like.
Oh, that's so creepy, but so cool.
Yeah.
I want to, go inside of it.
And that you can kind of see the tree.
I can't believe it's still standing that much.
I know.
Like, how is it even standing when the whole top is off of it?
I had no idea. And then this is the guy who, the Uncanny podcast, and then this is Phil Now. They went and hiked out to the building.
Oh, really?
I think that's, yeah. But I didn't see, I don't think he talks about it on the podcast that they went out there.
Oh, really?
But I saw a bunch of pictures of them together on a hike.
Like with that in the background?
Yeah.
I wouldn't go back there.
I'd be so scared.
Mm-hmm.
But it's weird to think that they're, like, it's so run down.
Mm-hmm.
That it's weird to think that there was even an upstairs or anything for
Yeah.
them to go into, even in the
Yeah.
70s.
That's crazy.
So, yeah. That's Louis Belt Lodge. It's literally, you have to hike a long ways to get out there.
I wonder how long it would take. Like, I wonder if people go out there and try to go and look at it and like walk around in it.
So they took the train to Balloch and then hitched a lift north of Kinlochleven near Fort Williams. From there, they set out on foot about 10 miles.
10 miles?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's
And that
longer
one
than I
person, it
was
said
thinking.
he'd been walking for like 10 hours or something, I read.
That's crazy. Like, that is such a long time.
Yeah.
Cabins in the woods are supposed to be cozy, crackling fires, snow outside, and silence, but sometimes that silence starts to feel wrong. In the heart of winter, isolation can twist reality, and the woods can turn on you. These are the stories of when a winter getaway becomes a nightmare. This is called I Booked a Cabin in the Mountains. The previous guests left a strange entry in the guest book. I moved to Seattle from Kansas about 5 years ago. I'm one of those tech bros all you locals are always complaining have ruined your city. Well, I guess it's my city now. Sorry. Me. One of my favorite things about the Pacific Northwest is the mountains. I try to get away from the city as often as I can, so when I found this cabin on the Skykomish River, I decided I would treat myself to a midweek getaway in the early fall. I arrived this morning. The cabin was very cozy, tucked away among the trees next to the riverbanks. There was a hot tub on the back deck and Wi-Fi for us tech bros who only like the facade of roughing it. I put my bags on the bed and decided I'd explore inside before I explored out. There was an extensive DVD collection, but mostly romantic comedies and family movies. Magazines from 5 years ago littered the coffee tables. In a little nook in the bedroom, I found a basket containing a few notebooks and local travel guides. The notebooks were, according to the labels, for guest notes. I smirked and laid down with the most recent one. I'd probably get a kick out of this. It was mostly what I expected, people talking about their kids and their dogs and how much they love the hot tub and the river. Pretty boring. I flipped through the book until I got to the most recent entries. It looked like the last guests had written a few pages. 10/10/2020, 10 p.m. The noises started around 8:30 tonight. At first, we thought it was just the rain. We never should have read that book we found in the woods. That's the first entry. If I read that, I'd be like, okay, time for me to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Not staying here anymore.
Like, that's it. Gotta go.
My eyes widened and I looked more closely at the page. This was a bit more interesting than the white bread entries before. Well, maybe
White bread entries.
Well, maybe red is the wrong word. There wasn't enough in any language we understood to actually read it. It was nothing but weird symbols and grotesque drawings, except on the very last page, which read in English, when darkness overtakes the day, that's when old Goo Goo likes to play. Teeth so sharp, eyes so red, once you see him, you're good as dead. Okay, pretty weird, but whatever. These noises, though, we thought it was dripping rain, but it isn't the right cadence. It sounds more like licking, and every so often there's a crunching sound. Maybe it's just our imaginations. We aren't used to the forest after all. It's so dark and quiet, so every sight or sound seems magnified. As I was closing the curtains in the bedroom, it looked like something was standing at the riverbank. Something vaguely human, but with large horns and big wings folded behind it. My husband says it was a tree. When I looked back, it was gone. Time for bed now. Hope I can sleep. The noises haven't stopped. I chuckled. Clearly, someone was getting into the Halloween spirit and having some fun with it. Still, I looked up and through the window in the bedroom at the raging river beyond, and I felt a little uneasy. The sun was starting to set, and the big picture windows did give the impression that someone or something could be watching from the woods. I got up and closed the curtains before continuing reading just to ease my mind. 10/11/2020, 7:45 a.m. The bed in this cabin is wonderfully comfortable. My husband slept like a rock. I, however, kept dreaming about a horned creature standing at the corner of the bedroom staring at me. My husband said it was just a dream, but when I got up this morning, all of the curtains were opened. My husband says he didn't touch them, and I must have left them open last night, but I know I didn't. At least the noises have stopped. We plan to enjoy the hot tub and relax today. 10/11/2020 to 10 p.m. We spent the last hour in the hot tub. Very nice, but I kept seeing something darting among the trees. Even back inside, I feel like I'm being watched. My husband thinks I'm going crazy. Maybe I am. Yeah, I think you probably are. Maybe drink some beer and chill out. This page had started out with the same neat, tight writing of the entry before, but as the page went on, the writing became larger and more erratic, slanting across the page. The last entry on the page was the most haphazard looking. 10/11/2020, 8 p.m. The noises are back, but now there's chanting too. My husband says it's the neighbors, but it isn't in a language we know. I see glowing red lights in the woods. I'm afraid to close my eyes. My husband says I'm overreacting. I don't think I can trust him anymore. Chanting, now I was really sure this was a joke. However, I strained my own ears in the quiet of the cabin and listened. The sun had definitely gone down now, but it was still raining. I could hear the dripping outside. Maybe if you were losing your mind, it did sound a little bit like licking. I admit that I gasped when I turned the page, even if it was all a joke. The next pages were barely legible, scribbles and symbols and nonsense. I will try to write it the best way I can for you. 10/12/2020, 8 a.m. I'm supposed to go home this morning. I can't believe I stayed in the woods all by myself all weekend. All of this alone time made me a little paranoid. I'm packing the book I found. It is still wet for some reason, like it has been in the rain all weekend. On second thought, I don't think I will leave. I want to stay here forever. I want to become one with old Goo Goo. The bottom third of that page was just odd symbols that I had never seen before. The next and final page was simply Goo Goo, written over and over again, covering the entire page. I rolled my eyes and closed the guest book. Very funny, people. I got up and tossed it back into the basket with the other books, then rifled through them to see if there was anything good that I missed. Maybe something better than this fake monster story. Behind the travel guides was a small leather book that I hadn't noticed before. Curious, I picked it up. It was strangely wet, like it had been in the rain all weekend. And that's how it ends.
Ooh. Wait, yeah, okay, then in the entry it said, like, I can't believe I've been here all weekend by myself or something, but it started with her and her boyfriend?
Yeah, her and her husband.
Or, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's weird.
I know, so like, is the husband like part of it by saying, like, oh no, you're crazy?
Yeah.
That's not happening. And then she gets like possessed and is like, I want to stay here forever.
Yeah. Did Goo take her husband?
Yeah, and then like possess her.
Yeah. Ooh. That's
Cabins
spooky.
are just so creepy.
Yeah.
I love like cabins and like going to like cabins, but
Yeah.
at the same time, like there's so many scary movies and
So
stories that
many.
involve cabins and
Cabin in the
woods.
woods.
Yeah.
Ooh, yuck. Yeah, they're definitely my kind of camping.
Yeah. Okay. This last one is called Nightmare Experience at My Friend's Cabin. My story involves myself and three of my really good friends throughout my whole childhood. We'll have them go by Kevin, Ryan, and Tommy, whom I am good friends with to this day. I could not write this story to you without their help, consent, and experiences as well. The story you are about to read is true and not made up in any way. Regardless whether we had been seeing things or not, the reality is we had experienced something very horrifying the one night at my friend Kevin's cabin. We thought long and hard about actually sharing it or not, afraid of being ridiculed, but we are ready to share with the community, and again, you had to be there to experience it. One of my friends had actually suffered a nervous breakdown after the incident and needed counseling in itself. Regardless, I would like you to know also I have always been a skeptic on the paranormal and find it very hard to believe in many aspects. But I love to watch, listen, and read on it simply because I always love to have an open mind in life. An open mind, in my opinion, is a growing one. Whether it was paranormal or not, someone was clearly there that night. Now, finally, on with the story. During the midsummer, usually around the middle of July, me and a couple of my good friends, who I had mentioned all the way through my childhood, always made time to go up to one of my friends' family cabin way up north in the forest of Minnesota, cabin located on Vermilion Lake. So that's like not very far from us.
No.
Like, depending where it is, either way, it's still in Minnesota on Lake Vermilion.
Yeah.
Throughout all of our young years, we would always go, for sure, accompanied by my friend's dad, Kevin's dad, who owned the cabin, and sometimes a few of our dads as well. Once we were juniors in high school, we felt mature and old enough to go to the cabin on our own, finally, without Kevin's dad or any other adult supervision that may have accompanied us. I would like to mention a little information in regards to my friend's cabin to help you picture the scenario. My friend's cabin is very remote and very little, based upon a very large sized island. Other cabins were on the island, but the next one closest to us was a solid quarter or half mile away at least, which you could get to by taking a man made path around the island. I want to mention that to get to my friend's cabin, you had to park on a gravel road on the opposite side of the island, as his cabin was on an island, and take his boat across the lake about a half a mile to reach the cabin. This lake is huge. My mind always had a tendency to run around when sleeping there at night throughout all my years, for it was all one level with only two bedrooms next to one another, a kitchen, living room connected, and a bathroom in the back of the cabin. And where you slept in the cabin, there was always at least one window in each room with no curtain to it at all. So it was very easy to see outside to the woods and lake, and this is where my mind would run, as I always thought someone was peering in. Of course, nobody ever was. I had been to this cabin a dozen times throughout my lifespan, and nothing has ever happened, and the older I get, the easier it was to sleep. Now for the event. We usually would stay a week's worth or 4 or 5 nights. On the third night during the trip, when we were there on our own finally, we had set up a campfire and had been drinking beer all night. I don't condone underage drinking, by the way. We just happened to sneak some, being the rebels we are. We went out to his dock to gaze up at the magnificent stars and enjoy our buzz, when all of a sudden we heard something out at the water that sounded like a fish jumping out to catch a bug. We quickly looked out at the lake with curiosity, wondering where the splash came from, having our poles ready 24/7. Thankfully, the moon was out that night, which helped lit up the lake. Otherwise, it would be dark as black, with there being no city lights for miles upon miles, and we would not have been able to see anything. My one friend Ryan began to point out, saying, what the hell is that? After looking closely and finally spotting what he was pointing at, all I can describe was it simply looked like a head out in the middle of the lake, just floating about, staring at us directly. It was about 3/4 worth of a football field length out in the lake from the dock. There's no question that I could see its features. It had long black hair, very palish skin, like a face, but couldn't make out the eyes, mouth, nose, or chin, as if it was just a blob of pale skin with long black hair all over it. I'll never forget the feeling that came over me. The hairs on my legs, neck, arms all stood up, and I was paralyzed on the inside, ready to leave at that moment. But we told ourselves it was just a loon.
It's just a
What do you
loon.
mean? As these birds are very popular night drifters on the lake and do their hunting late, and also have black with white colors on their coats, and hunt by diving deep into the water, holding their breath up to minutes sometimes. So it was possible that a loon all of a sudden popped up in the water after hunting, or at least we tried to talk ourselves into that scenario. All of us having the creeps and noticing it wasn't moving one bit, just treading water in its same place, went back to our campfire, lit it even brighter, and headed inside to drink more. I would like to mention that there was a staircase outside my friend's cabin, about 8 stairs in length, down to the bottom, where the fire pit was and dock. We soon forgot about the head with the help of the beer until I had to use the bathroom really bad, and the one inside was preoccupied. I just went outside to do my business since we were in the great outdoors. When I had been taking a pee and glancing out at the beautiful moonlit lake, I noticed that the black circle object was still there, but about 30 yards closer now, still looking as if it was staring at me. I
Mm.
could easily see the nose on the thing's face. Again, it was very pale, like it hadn't seen the sun for years. A very, very uneasy feeling came over me, and I immediately went inside, told my other friends to come look quick, keeping my eyes glued to it at the door to the cabin. We came outside to see it still there looking at us, as if this head was corked up at us with its chin in the air. Nobody dared to go down to the dock anymore, and we immediately went back inside, ruling out that it probably wasn't a loon because a loon wouldn't have tread water in the same spot. Eventually, the current would have drifted it somewhere else in a rocking manner. For a loon to stay in the same spot for almost an hour or two made no sense. This head like object was stiff as a board and not moving a single muscle, just staring up at us from the deck instead. There was no ripple effect at all in the lake from the object. We said it was just a log and went back in. I could tell everyone else felt uneasy too. A few hours passed, it was super late in the night, and I knew we needed sleep. Being my curious self, I looked back outside once more, and the black object had completely vanished. I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief, thinking the log must have floated or just hit shore somewhere. As we slept with the windows open that night, there was no AC in the cabin, and we had to open them, or we would fry in this cabin with it being the middle of summer. Me and my other buddy Tommy slept in the living room while my other two friends slept in the two separate bedrooms with their doors open. Not being able to sleep but keeping my eyes peeled shut, I began to hear someone walking around at the bottom of the stairs to the cabin, around the campfire, and at the bottom of the stair. I thought I was about to shit bricks. No question what or whoever I heard down there was off the dock now, pacing back and forth as it made the sound of a boot clicking on the wood. It was as if they weren't sure what to do with themselves, and it lasted for about 3 minutes. Wanting to whisper to my buddy, but frozen in fear, I just kept my eyes shut and ears on full alert. The footsteps sounded like they took 2 steps up the deck stairs all of a sudden, but then turned around and sounded like they were sprinting out down the man made path. After it sounded like the steps were long gone and a couple minutes had passed, I woke up Tommy, asking if he heard the steps, both of us sitting up. I was startled to find my friend Ryan walking out of his room and saying we need to leave a minute after these steps vanished. He must have heard us talking, so he felt like he could come out as well, but either way, he was waking us up regardless. Something was very disturbing about his expression, and I asked him why. He woke up my other friend Kevin in the other room and said, "Let's go. Let's get to the boat. It's time to go." Asking him, "What, Ryan, what the hell is wrong with you?" He explained to us quickly while grabbing his stuff, and I will never forget what he explained, as won't my other friends. He said when he was turning sides on his bed to get more comfortable, he saw someone peeking in at the top right corner of his window, and it quickly shifted out of his view. He said all he saw was one eye, ghostly white skin, and black hair long down the window. Again, another thing I would like to add, when we look back at what he experienced, it chills us to the bone, realizing that since this face was in the top right corner of the window in my friend's room that he was sleeping in, this thing either was damn near 8 feet tall, standing on something like bricks trying to peek in, or it was floating. Ryan then continued to say, "Let's fucking go," very seriously. Absolutely disturbed the fuck out of my mind and feeling like I was going to be sick, and then telling them what my friend and I heard in the living room. We all agreed and packed our stuff and booked it, not cleaning the cabin or anything. We locked up, and as we headed down the stairs, we saw barefoot prints. I don't know, like, I'm just gonna say footprints.
I think they mean, yeah, just like
They mean
bare
like bare
feet.
feet,
Yeah.
but like it sounds like bear, like a bear.
Yeah.
We locked up, and as we headed down the stairs, we saw bare footprints in the dirt heading off into the path and all around the cabin. We picked up our step getting to the boat, not knowing what was watching us or around us, threw our stuff on the boat, untied it, and sped off. I didn't even think about the head in the water anymore or to look in the water, thank God. My eyes were just glued to the island, trying to spot anything moving, but I saw nothing. When we had finally gotten our stuff packed in the car and boat tied up, we hopped in the car and took off. We had been driving about 10 miles, and out of the blue, Ryan, who said he saw the person outside his window, all of a sudden broke down in the car, sobbing, saying, "What was it, guys? Oh fuck, what did I see?" We called to tell our parents what had happened on the way back and that Ryan was freaking out, and they told us to just get home safely and quickly. It was late, about 4 or 5 in the morning, but no one slept, and it was a very quiet ride home. My friend's dad, who owns the cabin, went up that following weekend and said he experienced nothing while there, but did mention the bare footprints were still lingering about, which he thought was odd because someone was walking around his property, which bugged him badly. Whatever my one friend saw in the window really hit him hard. After his breakdown, he had trouble sleeping multiple nights and ended up having to seek some help for a couple of weeks and hop on some sleeping medicine. As time went on, he ended up being fine, but isn't too comfortable sleeping next to a window without a curtain. I to this day cannot explain what happened and why it seemed to happen to us, and cannot explain what I saw in the lake and what Ryan specifically saw. Nothing has ever happened at that cabin since that night, so we're told from my friend's dad who owns it. I believe him. I personally have never decided to go back to the cabin, which makes me really sad because I had really great childhood memories there. Tommy and Kevin both have gone back and been fine, but Ryan refuses to go back, and I'm with him. A lot of people have cabins on this island, so it could have been a prank in the makings that had been busted when Ryan saw the person at the window, or the person possibly wanting to do something worse. I will never be able to explain what was floating in the lake, but the fact that this incident, along with bare feet and someone looking in at Ryan at night, all happened in the same night, seems like more than a coincidence. It's creepy because it's so close to where we are.
I didn't realize, I guess I didn't really know where that lake was, but it's really, yeah, really not that far from us.
Mm-mm.
Also, it's huge.
Yeah, I know.
I thought I could find an island. There's like 6 islands
Yeah,
on
there's a
there.
bunch of them. I wish there was like a picture of the cabin or
Mm-hmm.
like of their view of the lake so you could see like where the head was.
Yeah.
But like they said it was treading water for like 2 hours. Like I feel like no person could sit in the middle of a lake just treading water with just your head above the water for like 2 straight hours.
Yeah, no. Even a loon wouldn't be sitting there
No.
like that.
And he said that the head that he saw was like what they saw in the lake. I feel like it was a SW
Yeah,
because
I
he
could.
said that the window was like 8 feet high too.
Oh.
So it would have had to be like an 8 foot tall.
I'm just like picturing, I've never even seen The Ring, but that's what I'm
That's
picturing.
literally what I'm picturing too.
Like that.
Samara.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. Makes me not want to ever go to a cabin.
Mm-mm.
Not that I like even have a cabin or
Yeah.
like go to any, but
But you know,
yeah, if anyone invites me to a cabin, sorry, I'm not
I'll
going.
go for the day.
Yeah,
Then I'm going
just
home.
during the day until the sun starts to set.
I might stay for some s'mores,
Mm-hmm.
but then I'm out of there.
Yeah, and like whenever it gets dark too, I feel like there's so many more noises and like things that you see like in woods or like on water that doesn't happen when it's like lighter out.
Yes, I agree.
Like,
And I already
what is
hate
that?
large bodies of water.
Me too.
So
Literally, I don't think I would have even been able to get on the boat and leave.
I feel like I'd get to the middle of the lake and be like, ooh.
I'd like have a heart attack on the way back.
I hate it. Sometimes that's how I feel when I'm on Pokegama. I'm like, damn, this lake is freaking huge.
It is. I don't even like ever go on any type of water.
I don't
anymore.
ever. Yeah, it's been too long.
My fear of water is like worse as I've gotten older.
Yes, because I used to be able to like go tubing and
Oh
jump
my
off the boat in the
God.
middle of the lake.
I couldn't
do it now.
I couldn't either. Like, no.
I-
Going tubing and like falling off of it
and then
waiting
having
for
to
the
wait
boat
there.
Oh my God, that's like a nightmare for me.
And it's not like we have sharks in our water or something,
But it's still just like
there could be
you're
giant,
sitting there and you don't know what's
underneath
you.
And like giant fish in there.
And we've only explored 5% of like underwater.
Yeah.
Like we don't even know what's down there.
Ooh.
It's so creepy.
Gross. Frozen lakes, I feel like I can handle that.
Oh, that's creepy to me too. Just because I'd be scared of it like
breaking.
Yeah.
That too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not that last time I went ice fishing was ages ago.
And like if you did fall through, then you usually like float like away from the hole and you have to like try to find like where the hole was.
That's my biggest fear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't do it. I don't want to be anywhere near frozen or not frozen water.
Yes. I'll be on the shore of the water.
Mm-hmm. Or on the dock.
Yeah. Even sometimes if I'm on the dock, I'm like,
I know, like it makes like creaking sounds.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, this is it. I'm gonna fall in.
Like on the Parent Trap when she like wakes up on the mattress.
On the mattress.
That's like what I'm picturing would happen if I like go camping. I'm like, something's gonna happen. I'm gonna end up in the water.
Yeah, somebody's gonna try to prank me and put me in the water, and then that's gonna be my biggest fear.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So, don't invite us to your cabins.
Yeah. Moral of the story.
If you have a cabin, sell it. And then don't go back. Unless you want to see a floating head that creeps in your window at night. Ooh. I'm going to have a nightmare about that tonight. Thanks, girlies and ghoulies, for joining us. Come back next week for stories about haunted hotels.
Make sure to follow our socials linked in the show notes and email us your ghost stories and anything paranormal at girlyghosttales@gmail.com.
If you want episodes 1 week early, live ghost hunts, tarot Tuesdays, automatic entry into giveaways, and exclusive bonus content, join us on Patreon for $5 a month. New episodes release every Friday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Until next time, and remember, if you hear a whisper in the dark, it's probably just us.
But just in case, keep your lights on and your doors locked. Remember, the veil is always thinner than you think.
Good night.
Girly Ghost.